Hello, 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 everybody. How's it going today? Welcome to the Ben Burnside Show, coming to you from Fresno, my hometown, home turf. It has been hot here the last few days. Um, Very hot, actually. Well, yeah, pretty hot. Whenever I go outside, it's like a giant hot hand is slapping you right in the face. It's kind of like that. Yeah, it's that time of year. August is like the hottest time of the year in my opinion. Like right around there. August and July. It's right there. So yeah, and we're just starting out in August, so we're right in the middle of it. But that's all right because I get to stay inside. I'm used to it, and hell, I'm even wearing a coat. But I got no shirt, but I'm not. It's comfortable. It's nice and cold in this house, so that's all good. Um, but anyway, let's get to reviewing the UFC Fight Night, Brunson versus Shabazyan. That was a pretty strange card, and it sounds like an even stranger fight week. Dana White said this was the craziest setup for a fight day ever in terms of like preparing throughout the week. Uh, and so it makes total sense um, because a number of fights got canceled. One fight on this card got canceled like literally in the last minute, right before the fight was about to start, and so that's pretty wild. So um, yeah, and I'll talk about that. That's later in the main card, but let's get to the prelims. Let's get right to it. We started off with Chris Gutierrez versus Cody Durden. I don't think these two were set up to fight each other. I think this was one of the fights that got affected, but they ended up fighting each other anyways. I think particularly Durden was a short notice person. I think the fight that Chris Gutierrez had was not against him, but this is what happens when late notices come up. Unknowns have arrived. And Cody Durden was a rather impressive looking fighter, particularly in the first round. He took down Gutierrez and really just dominated him throughout the round to where it was a 10-8 round, in my opinion. But then Gutierrez prevented takedowns from happening at all again in the fight. And, it's just uh, Gutierrez, Durden looked tired, or at least more tired than he was in the first round. And Gutierrez, he didn't, he took advantage of that actually. So um, he he took advantage from the striking, specifically from leg kicks, and from that he ended up winning the last two rounds. But it was only 10-9, according to the points to where he won. So, when you add all the points together by each round, it was a draw. So that that must be frustrating for Chris if he just could have gotten up in the first round. Um, Maybe he would have won by a close decision. So that's unfortunate. Um, Featherweight. This was another fight that got canceled off, uh, or that got changed, I should say. Um, the second opponent for this card, who was set to fight Jamal Emmers, uh, he was taken off for some unknown reason. I'm not sure why, but Jamal Emmers stayed on the card. This is for featherweight, 145. He fought another newcomer who came up on, I think, hours' notice, Vince Cachero. And Vince is 7-2 going into this fight. He proved to be a tough competitor in the minor leagues in the LFA, and I think that's where Jamal Emmers came from too. Both of these guys, yeah, I thought this could have been fight of the night before Vicente Luque. Well, before a number of fights actually in the main card. But this was, I think, a contender at least for fight of the night. I think Jamal Emmers looked very impressive in this fight, and Vince Cachero, he was game, man. He took all the punches, and he just kept going, coming and coming, and it equaled to be a very entertaining fight. But I think Emmers won all 3 rounds, if I'm not mistaken. So he just looked impressive, and he seems like a big guy for the division. He seems like an impressive fighter too. Like he's going to come up in the rankings a little bit. And so, yeah, I think Jamal is a very he's a guy to look out for sure. And if he performs like this, Cachero, we'll see where he goes. He's going to have another shot to fight. This was on short notice, so it'll be interesting to see how he grows. And he seemed maybe small for the division. I'm not sure. Maybe he can go down to bantamweight. You know, that could make more sense for him. So we'll see how it goes. All right, next fight on the card will be Johnny Munoz taking on Nathan Maness. This was a close fight. This was a fight at featherweight. I honestly don't know if Maness won the fight. This seemed really close. But Munoz, it was hard to get Maness down. It showed how good Munoz was on the ground. And I think Munoz clearly won the first round. But the second rounds and third round were quite debatable. So I could see Maness winning the fight. Honestly, this fight honestly came up as a blur to me upon remembering it. I just think Munoz he's a very good fighter, and I think he's going to be a guy to look out for in this featherweight division. Munoz doesn't seem like he's going to go away. It seems like he's only going to get better. He was undefeated coming up all the way up to the UFC, so it doesn't sound like he's had a giant amount of suitable competition like Maness yet. So I think this guy's going to improve. I think he's going to be somebody to watch out for sure. As for Maness, the same thing. Man, the UFC these days, these fighters that fight in the first 3 fights of a card, they could have been in the main event 10 years ago. It's like, it's insane how good the skills of all fighters in the UFC have gotten. It's just so noticeable how much better they are and more polished they look. It's like, whoa, they're ready right away when they come into their careers as a pro. It's just insane. And I think Johnny Munoz is a good example of that. How old is he? I was wondering that. Munoz does not say. Let's see. Click again. Yeah. Going into Tapology to find out his ranking or his age. He's 27, so he can still grow. He can still grow as a fighter, especially now since he's gotten to a new, tougher level of competition. He will naturally get tougher and better. So that's a scary proposition. The last fight in the prelim portion of this card, again, there was like 2 more fights in the prelims, but one of them was canceled. It was Marcus Perez and an opponent that I don't remember. But the opponent couldn't make it. Or called himself out of the fight. I don't know what for, but for whatever reason he couldn't make it to the fight. So another fighter came in, was asked to fight Perez on hours' notice, and I think the fighter agreed. But after a while, I watched the weigh-ins happen for all these fighters. I didn't see all of them. But I noticed that they, from looking at the video that MMA Junkie, courtesy of them, was posting, and from the audience, and from just looking at their article, I noticed that fight didn't have all the fighters weigh in yet. And so I believe Perez weighed in, but not the other fighter. So and that fighter was the last one to weigh in out of all the fighters of that card for weigh-in day at that point. And so I was waiting, and then I noticed they took off the scale from the stage. I was like, oh, that doesn't look good. And then soon after, we found out that fight was canceled. I think that fighter that didn't weigh in called it off. So that's what happened. And before this fight I'm going to talk about now, there was a fight that was supposed to happen before this. It was Ed Herman, who's a really journeyed veteran in the UFC, a well-known guy, been in season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter. Ed Herman taking on Gerald Meerschaert, the product out of Duke Rufus's gym, I believe, and who was a former 185-pound fighter, now turned light heavyweight at 205. Meerschaert tested positive for the coronavirus, and apparently Ed Herman was pissed. And so Ed Herman, Dana put it in a way to where it sounded like he counseled himself, maybe, I don't know, for finding out that the fight didn't happen, so, or wasn't going to happen. So I don't know. That's just speculation on my part. But the way Dana White put that in the post-fight press conference when he was asked questions, that was one of the highlights of this card. Honestly, I laughed at that. So anyway, let's go to the final fight in the prelim portion of the card, the feature prelim. And this was going to be the feature prelim anyways. Frankie Saenz, 39-year-old veteran, taking on Jonathan Martinez. This fight kind of bothers me, and Jonathan Martinez, he was very impressive. I'm not taking anything away from his skill overall and how he fights, but I'm going to take away the win from him a little bit, because I just don't like that. I don't like the idea that he missed weight for this fight by 4.5 pounds. And so it sounded like Frankie and his camp were bothered by him missing that much weight for a fight that's supposed to take place at 135. Jonathan Martinez tested 140, even though the weight limit could be 136 for that division. And Jonathan Martinez is younger too. I just, would he have beaten Frankie Saenz if he would have cut that more weight and lost that much energy? Who knows? I don't really know. But it was impressive the way he won. But I don't, I've heard from a number of podcasters say that if you're 4 to 6 pounds overweight, there begins to be an argument of whether you tried to miss weight. And look, I'm just a fan. I'm just repeating what a couple MMA podcasters said, which are Josh Thompson and John McCarthy, who have been in the game for a while. And so I just think, I don't know. And Dominic Cruz even pointed out in the fight, as Jonathan Martinez was beating Frankie Saenz, that definitely the lack of the weight cut for Martinez seemed quite arguably could have played a role in how effective he was being as a fighter in this fight, because he didn't lose energy from having not cutting all that weight. So, and Frankie Saenz did cut all that weight. So it's interesting, to say the least. My guess is, would Frankie Saenz, would he have lost the fight even if Martinez would have cut the weight? I would predict yes. That's just my opinion. And look, I'm just an MMA fan. I'm going to put that on the description. I'm going to do that for this video. I'm just an MMA fan. So, and I'm not an expert. I'm just making a podcast as a fan. And I think Saenz I'm just predicting that I still think Signs would lose, but we don't know that. We don't know that Signs would lose because Martinez missed weight by that much. So I don't know. It made me wonder. Made me wonder if is cutting the purse enough. Like I know hitting the wallet that's never fun, but I mean, I just hope Martinez doesn't go up in the pecking order from this happening. I feel like it's the same thing as missing weight and winning a fight. It's the same thing as like if you'd get a draw, which is what happened in the first fight between Gutierrez and Durden. I think neither one of those guys in terms of the pecking order are going to go up or down. They're going to stay where they're at because it was a draw. I think even though Martinez won, his credibility of winning should go down because of the weight cut, maybe. And I've always had this opinion with ranked fighters, and therefore because he lost credibility of winning, it's kind of like having a draw, and therefore you don't go up or down in the pecking order. If you lose and you missed weight, you go down maybe harder, but I don't know. That's just an idea. Maybe not harder. I don't know, but because you lost, you're already going down the pecking order, and you're losing money in your purse. So maybe that's too a little harsh if you lose and miss weight. But I don't know. I'm just hoping that Martinez doesn't go up in the pecking order. And honestly, I don't like that they gave him an interview after the fight either. I thought that was the wrong message to send. But I don't know. That's just all my opinion as a fan. Let's get into the main card. The main card, just to clarify, there were a couple drops of the main card. One preventage of a fight happened in the last minute, which I'll get to in a second. But just to clarify, the main event for this card, which was going to take place obviously in the main card, was Holly Holm and Irene Aldana, who's coming up in that division. And Irene Aldana, I wonder if it was this week. I'll look that up. But Irene Aldana at some point tested positive for the coronavirus, and because of that, they dropped her from the fight. They canceled the fight pretty much, which is kind of curious. I wonder if they offered Holly Holm a late notice fight, but it doesn't seem like they did. It seems like they just canceled it immediately. Okay. It looks like it happened around July 22nd, which is a little more than a week before. It's kind of like the same window of when Tony got injured before he was going to fight Habib, right around that for UFC 223. And ironically, that was just as crazy of a prep week, probably crazier, maybe the craziest of all time, in my opinion. But this is in the top 5. One of the crazier weeks ever for in the week before a fight day was going to happen. So I think it's pretty funny that the same situation that happened for that fight event for UFC 223 happened for this fight event, and both events had crazy weeks before the event actually happened. So that was pretty funny. But yeah, the main event was canceled from this card right off the bat. So this seemed to be a cursed card from the get-go. And the first fight of this main card was going to be Kevin Holland versus Trevin Giles. But Trevin Giles fainted on his way to the octagon. I've never heard of that before. He fainted right before he was literally going to walk out of the octagon. And Wow. I have never heard of that ever. I've imagined something like that happening before. For some reason, like, oh my God, they're so nervous. What if they faint before coming out? You know, because it's understandable. You're going to go walk out to go have a fight, but they, I've never actually seen it happen. It's just another thing when it happens, and I think obviously it caught the announcers off guard. It caught me off guard. My mouth dropped. Like, that's so weird of something to happen. But and I felt bad for Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles, he fought in Fresno here, and he destroyed a guy. He destroyed a Brazilian guy. And I think he really is a very capable 185 pounder to where he's dangerous and he's powerful. And his opponent Kevin Holland's really good. I think I picked him to win this fight, and if he would have won that fight, I think he's fighting this coming week, if I'm not mistaken. If Kevin Holland would have won this fight, I would have him fight a top 15 guy next. I think he's ready. But it didn't happen. Both guys were from Texas. They've been eyeballing each other for a while in terms of fighting each other, but it just didn't happen. And after he fainted, obviously the medical staff in the UFC, they're like, no, you're not fighting. And so the fight was canceled at that point, even though Giles and his camp apparently pleaded. So it's unfortunate. Kevin Holland wanted to fight, obviously, too, and he tweeted to fight Ed Herman. He tweeted to fight Ed Herman at, later on in the show. But you know, Ed Herman was a little busy. So anyway, I think who knows? It'd be pretty cool if Holland fought Ed Herman this coming weekend. You know, that'd be pretty interesting. And I think Kevin Holland is a game fighter. Trevin Giles, though, he seems ready to have the fight. Like, he didn't seem hurt at all from the feint, and he was taken to the hospital, but it was just a routine check kind of thing, it sounded like. So I haven't had that confirmed, so we'll see. The next fight on the card was definitely the fight of the night. It was Lando Venata taking on Bobby Green. Bobby Green coming in the octagon once again after 41 days of having another fight with Clay Guida. It was a three-round battle, and so pretty short notice turnaround for Bobby Green to come back and fight another very capable fighter who could be in the top 15, you know, with just a couple wins. And even though the lightweight's a competitive division, these two were right there. And I really would argue that Bobby Green should maybe fight a top 15 guy after this fight. I mean, or at least he should be in conversation, because there's so many people in conversation to get in the rankings in that division that the division is just sick. It's just ridiculous. But Bobby Green is hitting his own. He had a broken hand, or like, I think a broken hand before coming into this fight. So and he used mostly his hands. So that's pretty crazy. And I think Bobby, it was pretty clear to me that he won the fight, even though Lando really had him in, really was going to be a guy who tested Bobby every second of the fight. Bobby was still winning, and he clearly still won the fight, in my opinion. And man, who do you have Bobby fight next? I would have him fight maybe like an Olivier, what's his name? Aubin Mercier, the Canadian. I'd have him fight one of those guys who's right at the top 15, who's right barking at the top 15, to demanding them to get a spot in that rankings. To This is Bobby Green. His next fight will be his shot to get in there, finally, and I think it will be really interesting to see what Bobby Green does. I think that Russian who fought Davi Ramos not too long ago, maybe he could fight Bobby Green next. I don't know. It needs to be a fighter who's right there, and the winner of Bobby Green and that fighter, they'll get a top 15 spot next, or they'll fight a top 15 person next. It's Bobby Green's just really impressive, and he's an interesting fighter. He always has his hands down, and apparently that helps him to punch better. And people can't telegraph his punches that much, so he uses it to his advantage. Lando's a fun fighter too. I remember he did a spinning wheel kick to John McDessie, knocked him right out. And yeah, it's unfortunate Lando lost, but he's a little younger than Bobby, so he still has time to improve. So we'll see how that goes. But this was the fight of the night. I mean, there was just shots traded the entire fight pretty much. Bobby was a little better in the wrestling. But Lando didn't, he found ways to get out of it still. I'm really happy that Bobby got the bonus and was able to pay off his house in this fight. He was given $50,000, along with Lando Veneta, to remind you, for the fight of the night for this card. So that's a nice story to hear, especially during a pandemic, that someone's able to pay off their house, and they have a place to live. That's pretty cool. Next fight on the card, the fight I was most looking forward to because of this guy, Vicente Luque. He took on a guy who's ungodly big for the welterweight division, Randy Brown. Luque had a great game plan going into this fight. He attacked the small caps early, and he was clearly damaging one of them. Randy tried his best. He was very crafty, trying to figure out how to address that or try to take down Luque. I think he did take him down once, but I don't remember that for sure. But Randy Brown was trying his best to negate the attacks on the leg by doing other things, but Luque stayed in there, and he was crafty too. He kind of went with Brown. At the end of one of the rounds, Luque was on the ground, or he was about to go on the ground. He was trying to get up, I think, or no, Luque pulled him up from the cage. Brown had his hands on the ground, lifted it up, his hands off, and there wasn't a knee on the ground for him, so it was legal for Luque to knee him right in the head, and that's what Luque did. He kneed him right in the head. Brown clearly was devastated by that, and Luque landed a couple shots to end the fight. Late in I believe the second round. It's a very, very impressive win for Luque in a risky fight for him. He was fighting an unranked guy, and he just won his last fight, so it didn't make sense to fight Brown, but he won anyway. Hopefully Luque is not taken seriously anymore. Hopefully he finally goes up in the rankings a little bit, because he has been really good for a long, long time, and I've been watching him. So I'm just hoping that with this win, it's a wake-up call for the UFC. Luque, in the post-fight of his show, he called out Nate Diaz. I don't know if that fight's going to happen. I don't think Nate Diaz would want to do that with a no-namer, quite frankly. Luque's good, but he's not popular yet. So I don't see that fight happening. But I would like to see Luque fight somebody like Robbie Lawler. Maybe, who else? Let's take a look at the rankings. UFC. We're getting there right now. Welterweight. I could see Luque taking on, I don't know, man, that's tough. Luque went up in the rankings, by the way. He went up to 10. He went ahead of Jeff Neal. He could fight Jeff. That would be an interesting fight. He could fight Robbie Lawler. He could fight... Robbie Lawler is a big name in the division, so that would make sense, even though Rob Lawler is lower on the card. Neil Magny would also be interesting. Dos Anjos? I don't know. That also would be interesting. There's a lot of guys that Luque could fight. I don't see Dos Anjos being an option right now. Yeah, I don't know. Damian Maia could also make sense, but I don't see Damian wanting to fight Vicente Luque for potentially his last fight, so I don't know if that's going to happen. To me, it's Robbie Lawler, it could be Dos Anjos, or it could be Jeff Neal. It's one of those three to me. Possibly Neil Magny too, but Neil Magny's pretty low in the rankings now, so I don't know how much that's going to happen. I don't see a likelihood. Next fight on the card was Joanne Calderwood taking on Jennifer Maia. This was one of the more disappointing fights for me. I frankly wanted JoJo to win unabashedly. I like JoJo. I think she's just a very likable person to watch, and in terms of a fight, in terms of an interview, the whole shebang. And I've grown up with her from The Ultimate Fighter. I don't know who this chick is, Jennifer Maia. Like, who's that? But that's who won. That's who won the fight. Joanne had some success in striking, but so did Maia. But Joanne took her down, and she was on top, but Maia caught her over time with an arm bar and called her. It was a really good arm bar, and I think Maia might be a black belt. And Calderwood had no choice but to tap in an upset. Calderwood was number 3 in the rankings, and Maia was number 6. And I think Joanne took this fight on short notice, maybe, and Calderwood was aware of the risk going into it. Or no, she didn't take it on short notice. She just accepted the fight. She accepted it, and even though Maia was lower in the rankings and Calderwood had a title shot, Calderwood still went for it, and even though she had a title shot and took the risk, and now who knows if she's going to have a title shot. I heard Josh Thompson and John McCarthy predict that Maia could be next for a title shot. I don't think she should be next. If Calderwood ain't going to fight Shevchenko next for the women's flyweight championship at 125 pounds, then I don't think it should be Jennifer Maia, even though she beat her. Let's take a look at the rankings for flyweight. We got, let's see here. We have Caitlin Chookagian at number 1. Shevchenko just dominated her. Cynthia Calvillo, number 2. Hasn't fought Shevchenko yet. And Maia is now took Calderwood's spot at number 3. She's ahead of Lauren Murphy. That's another fighter who hasn't fought Shevchenko. So it's interesting. It's interesting going forward. Where do both of these fighters go in terms of who they fight next? Personally, I don't see Calvillo getting snubbed by Maia to fight Shevchenko next. If Calderwood lost and she lost her title shot, then I see Cynthia Calvillo being next to fight Shevchenko. This makes a lot of sense. And compared to at least the strawweight division in women's MMA, this division is weak. Maybe not as weak as, I don't know. This is a weak division. I mean, it's unfortunate. I just, particularly for fighters who are going to fight Shevchenko for the title, I don't see anybody who's ready. I just don't. I could be wrong. You know, this is MMA, but personally, when I look at the rankings here, let's see. You got Shevchenko. She needs a fight. Is she going to fight Chikagian? No, they just fought, so that's off the table. So Chikagian needs a fight. Cynthia Calvillo's next in the rankings, so I would give her Shevchenko next. Uh, just the obvious stuff. But the problem, though, is Jennifer Maia has already fought Chikagian, I believe, and lost. Let me double check that, but I think that's the case. So therefore, Lauren Murphy really gets into the picture here. And I think Chikagian has fought Murphy too, if I'm not well, I wonder if those two have fought. Chikagian's fought everybody though, that's for sure. Yeah, Chikagian fought Murphy in 2016, so it was a while ago when they fought. But yeah, they've already fought, and Chikagian won by decision. Um, it's interesting. I don't know. I see. I don't know. Yeah, there it is too. Chikagian beat Maya by decision. Huh. So I don't know. This is a tough situation here. What about Lauren Murphy and Jennifer Maia? I could see that fight taking place. Shevchenko, Calvillo, Chikagian. I don't know. What about Calderwood, Chikagian? I don't see that fight anywhere on here. Calderwood and Jessica I are tied here in the rankings at number 5. So that's interesting. Man, this is weird. It would make sense for there to be a rematch because Chikagian has to fight one of these two. Can't be Calderwood. Calderwood just lost, so it has to be Chikagian has to fight Maya, or she has to fight Murphy. And I don't know. I would have Chikagian fight Murphy, and Jennifer Maia maybe could be next in line to fight for the championship after Cynthia Calvillo. That's where I see happening. And, you know, under that card, I could see Joanne Calderwood fighting Jessica I. I could see those two fighting each other, so that can make sense. The main event. Let's go there. Oh, I should also mention, it's funny that I'm just remembering this in the last minute, since Dana White also did that for in his post-fight press conference. But Joanne Calderwood, after the fight, according to Dana White, she fainted. So I hope JoJo's okay. That's unfortunate to hear about that. She was transported to the hospital. I think, let's look that up and see. As I'm doing that, I'll start talking about the main event here between Derek Brunson and Edmund Shabazyan. Let's see. Calderwood released a statement after the fight. Let's see here. She said, so it looks like she's okay. She's in the hospital. According to her Instagram, Calderwood is flipping off the camera while in the hospital. Well, that was a rough night at the office. Congratulations to Jennifer Maia. I'm so grateful for my family, friends, and fans that are here to help me pick me back up in this crazy life we all share. It's a fight every day we all fight, but it's every day It's not every day it goes our way. Thanks to all the UFC staff, the medics and docs at UMC. Oh, and my knight in shining armor, Big Wood MMA 702. Sorry for scaring you, babe. Never give up. It looks like she's okay. She's recovering, so that's a plus to see in the whole situation. Derek Brunson versus Edmund Shabazyan, the main event of this card, of this crazy card. I got to be honest. I thought Shabazyan was going to smash Brunson. I believe I said it just that way too. And my heart wanted Brunson to win, but my brain totally didn't think that. And I'm really happy that my brain was wrong. Brunson destroyed Shabazyan by the end of this fight. Shabazyan looked like he was on his way to winning this fight, which was 3 rounds. And curious enough, Shabazyan wanted this fight to be 5 rounds, according to something I read. And after this fight, I wonder if he reconsiders that. I'm curious about that, because Brunson, he waited patiently for Shabazyan to land his big shots in the first round, and which clearly seemed to be the game plan for Derek. I think he admitted it as much after the fight. And in the second round, that's where he really put on the pressure as a wrestler and both as a powerful striker. And Shabazyan was more tired. Shabazyan apparently doesn't get out of the first round very much, and Brunson took full advantage of that by laying in the pressure. And Brunson laid some huge shots, especially toward the end of the round. I think Brunson got full mount, and he was damaging Shabazyan hard, to where I wonder if the fight needed to be stopped at one point. But the bell rung, and Herb Dean was in there. Herb Dean just had a wild week last weekend, and I was wondering, is Herb Dean making a bad decision here? But, after thinking about it, I don't think he did. I think he gave Shabazyan a chance. And particularly the way Herb Dean ended the fight in the third round, I think Herb Dean handled this fight pretty well, quite frankly, in just the right way too. Herb Dean noticeably I had no issue with Herb Dean throughout this card, and I wonder if that has something to do with if he got a wake-up call from the last card and he wanted to put in a hard effort for this card to shut up the critics. They kind of did. I mean, there's some questions about whether the fight should have been stopped in the second round, but I really don't think so. I mean, we've seen fighters in worse shape than Shabazyan continue a fight. And, I really think Shabazyan had another chance still to fight. And even though the doctor came in and he wanted him to check on Shabazyan, but he did. Shabazyan wanted to continue the fight, so the doctor resumed the fight. He thought it was okay. Dana White criticized that after in the post-fight press conference a little bit. It's a tough call, particularly if the cornerman for Shabazyan, which is Edmund Tarverdian, they didn't throw in any kind of towel or nothing, so it was a tough night at the office for Shabazyan. In the beginning of the third round, Derek Brunson immediately took advantage of the fight and laid in some heavy striking. I think Shabazyan got on his knees pretty quick by the cage, and Herb Dean at this point pretty much saw enough, and he stopped the fight. Brunson got the win. Very happy for Brunson. Brunson's been in this situation before where he's fighting guys who are on the rise in the rankings, and they're not maybe using him as a gatekeeper, but they're using him maybe as some sort of a stepping stone for these fighters to get in the nitty-gritty of the rankings, and I think they were doing that with Shabazyan as well. Brunson didn't let that happen this time, and Brunson looked amazing. For 36, he looked really good. I think his camp at Henry Hoof made him go to a different level, so I'm very excited to see where he goes. Uh, I don't know. I just think Shabazyan, this was a learning experience for him. I think he's going to be, he still has the potential to become a world champion, very much so. He's only 22. So it's going to be interesting to see how he grows in the next few years. But Brunson is going to be interesting to watch right now. Because at the middleweight rankings, you have Brunson, who went up at number 7. Uriah Hall jumped up in the middleweight rankings as well to number 9. Shabazyan dropped to 10. Gastelum dropped to 8. All makes sense. All makes sense. Makes sense to, who does Derek Brunson fight next? Who does Shabazyan fight next? Well, let's see. We got Adesanya versus Costa for the title. Whitaker and Jared Cannonier just got booked for, I guess, the number 1 contender shot. Hermanson and Yoel Romero, I mean, that makes sense for what's next. Even though that doesn't seem like fun for Hansen or Hermanson, because he's number 4 and Yoel's 5. Yoel really is at the same level as Hansen because Yoel just had a title fight. So, if anything, this is a step up in competition for Hermanson. So I see Yoel Romero and Jack Hermanson going at it here. So who does that leave Derek Brunson? Darren Till. Makes all the sense in the world. Darren Till's next. And if Derek Brunson really establishes wrestling against Darren Till, that could be trouble for Darren Till in that fight. And so it will be interesting to see Darren Till fight Brunson and see who wins stylistically in a fight like that. So that's my guess for who Brunson will fight next. It'll be Darren Till, and it will probably be at Fight Island, maybe late in December or maybe early next year, around there. As for Shabazyan, I don't know who he's going to fight next. Could be Uriah Hall. That's a possible matchup. Who's this Omari Akhmedov? I don't know a whole lot about him, but he's number 11 in the division. Event results. I see. Oh, Akhmedov's already booked. Well, no, he's not. I see. I don't know. I don't know who Shabazyan's going to fight next. It could be Omari Akhmedov, who doesn't seem to have a fight in line with anything yet. Or at least it doesn't say on here. Yeah. These biographies for the UFC fighters on their website doesn't show who they're fighting next, so maybe they can improve that. But as for Shabazyan, tough to say. Tough to say who he fights next. It could be Akhmedov who he fights, which would be a tough fight for Shabazyan. It could be no, he knocked out Brad Tavares, if I'm not mistaken. Could be Ian Heinisch. That could also make sense. Shabazyan needs some time off too. That was a rough result for him for this fight. So I would like to see him have some time off and recover a little bit before fighting again. Because that was brutal. That was a damaging matchup for him. So, a couple months off at least for Shabazyan. I think the big takeaway for this fight is that everybody, including me, and their mother, underestimated Derek Brunson. They thought he was going to just drop down again in the rankings, and it didn't happen that way. And I'm happy it didn't happen that way. In the post-fight interview that he had after the fight, Brunson came off as a very likable guy, and I'm happy he's getting that shot. He was talking about the Adesanya fight. He said that was just his fault. He messed up. And look, if Derek Brunson acknowledges that and then returns to the octagon and, or returns to training and looks up those things, I mean, he'll be even tougher for a guy like for the champion to fight if they ever cross paths again. It'll be interesting to see. So, I think I'm very excited for the potential for Derek Brunson. His time is now, and if he fights Darren Till, that will be a step-up name for him. It won't be a step-up name for Till. It will be for him, and Brunson's a guy that deserves that. He's been in the game for a long time, and I don't really think he's gotten as much big name respect as he maybe should have. So it's nice to see. That is the fight card, ladies and gentlemen. This was a short fight card, given all the cancellation fights, which is probably a good thing. I don't need to see a shitload of fights every week, like we're seeing. And won't you look at that? We have. I'm looking at next week's fight card, and we have Omari Akhmedov fighting Chris Weidman for the co-main event. So there you go. Shabazyan is not going to fight Akhmedov next. Anyway, I have a lot more MMA to talk about throughout the week. A lot more catching up to do, and I'm going to try to do more videos, not just MMA. Anything I'm interested in. This is the show where I talk about whatever I want: politics, movies, other stuff that I can't even think of. I will talk about it. It will be addressed. It will be addressed on the Ben Burnside Show. So you need to come watch, and you need to see this show. And in order to do that, like and subscribe on the channel. Keep following, keep listening to the show. Turn on the notifications if you can, and just keep supporting, man. I appreciate all the comments I'm getting already, so that's pretty exciting. I'll keep grinding. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy from the coronavirus, and until then, I will catch you on the Burnside. See you then.